Hello, everybody, and welcome to GoodTech, an ongoing discussion on technology and innovation. I'm Elizabeth Perry with White Bull. First off, I hope you and yours are staying well and safe these days. I know these are tough times for some, for some of us, but keep hanging on. And as a reminder, we'd love to hear from you. So it's much more fun to open up the dialogue and keep it lively. So if you're watching live today and have questions during the show, simply dial the number right beneath me on your screen and we'll get you in on the conversation. So let's get started. No matter what industry you're in, we're all experiencing change, big change, as the world stays home. In tech, in healthcare, in enterprise security, et cetera, virtually all business. What's good and what's bad? What has changed and what needs to change? According to today's guest, it's not digital transformation, it's radical innovation. What does it mean? What's happening today that is or needs to be radical? Let's find out. Joining us today is award-winning speaker and renowned security and business strategy professional with deep expertise in risk management and governance. He's now International Chief Technology Officer at Micro Focus. Unfortunately, the list of achievements is too long for what we have time for today, but I will tell you this. He had a US flag flown in his honor in the US Capitol in 2013. So we're going to find more about that in a moment. Without further ado, coming to us from Barcelona, please welcome Ramsés Gallego.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me, and it's truly a pleasure, an honor, privilege, to be sharing with you these minutes. What is going to be an amazing conversation on radical innovation, and always a blessing, to be sharing, to be informing, to be educating, and having a fantastic conversation. So let's do this. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Great to see you again. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for being here. So first question, let's, because everybody's on the edge of their seat right now. What's this about a flag flying in your honor in the US Capitol? I want to know all about that.
All right. So let me explain. Certainly is one of the highlights in my career, I have to admit. On November the 1st, 2013, I had the honor, the award, the blessing of having the US flag, which is not my flag. I'm a Spanish, Barcelona, born and raised. But the House of Representatives of Congress in Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C., they decided to put their flag flown on my name on the Capitol, probably the most recognized building, of the free world, I would say, actually, and it has been quite in the news this past month, the Capitol that we all have seen in television. So that happened for a couple of reasons. Let me tell you first. The first one, of course, knowing the right people, knowing a couple of senators and a couple of auditors and people that are relevant and who can actually request for that to happen, right? But I would say, and in the light of this beautiful conversation, Elizabeth and attendees, I think that the second one is even more important. I mean, they sent me a letter saying that for his willingness of saving the world, of protecting information, of securing data, and through information technology, I have been in the industry more than 2 decades, for my willingness and my drive of protecting information and, again, saving people's lives and data and applications and what makes us a society. So let me finish with this anecdote with the following, Elizabeth, is at the end of that day, November the 1st, 2013, they took it out. They fold it like in the movies, like in TV series, they fold it like in a triangle. And I have it here. I have it with me at home. They send it all the way to Barcelona, and it says flown in the honor of Ramsés Gallego on Capitol Hill, which is again a highlight of my career. Something that I will certainly tell my my family and my future family, of course. So it's an honor. It's an honor. Not being an American is truly a blessing. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's an honor to have you here today. I've never
Oh,
had a
thank you.
flag flown in my honor.
Yeah.
And so I hope you protect it well because the sunshine in Barcelona will fade that flag right away.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, but I have it here, so it's fantastic. It's there in my studio, and with the letter of the House of Representatives. And again, let me say it from the bottom of my heart. The second part of the story is what really moves me. Is for protecting data, for saving businesses and societies at large, which I think is what the conversation is going to be about. But again, that happened in 2013, so it's going to be November this year. It's going to be 8 years. So
Yeah.
that tells a story of the things that I have been doing on my professional career, which is again a fantastic opportunity to do things for the world. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Well, we're happy to have you.
Mm-hmm.
So today's topic is a big topic. We're
Uh-huh.
talking about change. So we might need two shows for this. I have a feeling
Certainly.
we're gonna go long on this, but we all know change, especially today. These are not easy times for many of us,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's our personal life or our professional life. It feels like change is largely being forced upon us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but maybe there's also positive change. So I'm intrigued by your statement, and
Uh-huh.
that's what we're going to talk about today. It's not digital transformation, it's radical innovation.
Uh-huh.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean, Elizabeth, is that a shift in perception is needed. What I mean is that we are so, bored, if I may use that word, of digital transformation, digital disruption. And okay, we get it. Actually, we at Micro Focus, that's what we do for a living: digital transformation, digital, again, disruption, smart cities, industry 4.0, 5.0. I don't know which version we are already on industry 5 point, 6 point, whatever. But I think that the name of the game is radical innovation, doing different things differently, especially in the cybersecurity arena, thinking out of the box. And that's my inspiration, hopefully, for everybody that is listening to us live or the recorded version of this conversation, which is doing different things differently. You mentioned change in your introduction, Elizabeth. Well, let me share with everybody the 3 V's of change. The 3 V's of change are the velocity, the variety, and the volume of change. So different system, different clouds, different applications, everything is super agile, velocity coming. So it's a sort of a chaotic way, and certainly COVID-19 didn't help into that equation, right? But you know what? There's a 4th V. So velocity, the variety, and the volume of change, but there's a 4th one, which is the value of changing, the value of being brave and thinking out of the box and embracing, adapting, and adopting radical innovation. So thinking, different technologies that certainly we will be talking in the next minutes on how to embrace not just security but resiliency, not just cyber security but cyber resiliency, the capacity to endure, the capacity to resist, not just protecting and defending, which is, again, it's our soul. We in the data security arena, in the privacy world, we say identify threats, protect from threats. Yes to all of that, of course. And we have been doing this for decades, correct. I buy all that. However, on resiliency, it's the capacity to endure, the capacity to resist. And this is why, my statement is about, okay, it's not only digital transformation, but radical innovation. Sit down with the business, sit down with marketing, sit down with human resources, sit down and let's do different things differently. That's my statement. Yeah.
I love that because you know what I love about you, Ramsey, is your energy.
Oh,
And
thank
I
you.
think that statement just wraps it right up. Let's not
Okay.
just, whatever, but let's radically do it. So anyway, I love that. And
Uh-huh.
I read something on you. I've been doing my homework,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been said that you believe that a revolution rather than evolution is needed when
Mm-hmm.
considering the move from technology, to enterprise. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely, and actually builds on my statement on radical innovation. We just not only need an evolution, because evolving, which is fantastic, it's just doing other things, so different versions of the same soul or DNA. So evolving, and we have been, with massive respect, I'm saying with massive respect, we have been throwing things at the endpoint, at the network, at the different devices for decades. The antivirus, and then intrusion prevention systems, and then the personal firewall, and then throwing things into the equation, which is like an evolution. But then, as you said, and you quoted me, I think that that re-evolution is necessary, because it certainly evolves on the identity and access management space. Who has access to what? It certainly evolves from tagging information, okay, I get all that, but you need to revolutionize. This is why I'm using, I'm playing with words, not just evolution, a re-evolution, evolving from the things that we have been doing for decades, but in a revolutionized way. Why, Elizabeth, and the people who are listening and viewing this? Because it's a matter of speed and power. I mean, in an epoch of machine learning and quantum computing and high power computing, I mean, technology is not the problem, but the willingness of protecting information. So this is why I talk about, and I have probably invented a word, which is evolution, revolutionizing, evolving from the things that we know in the security and protection arena, but in a revolutionized way. Speed and computing power. When you combine these two things, and certainly later we will be talking about machine learning or other things. I mean, when you combine this, then cyber criminals and our unique opportunity of protecting and defending, of withstanding, of resisting and enduring, I think that's the name of the game: radical innovation. So speed, computing power, and then re-evolution. That's my new word that I have probably invented. Re-evolution.
Yeah, it's another good one. So let's get down to some real world examples of
Okay.
things that need changing. I mean, I know that's a big question, because there are a lot of things that need changing. But in your expertise or your domain, what are some things that need changing?
All right, that's a very good question. Remember about the 3Ds of change that I just mentioned: velocity, variety, and volume of change, and then the value. Okay, so let me unify and simplify the message for our attendees today, which we massively appreciate that they are there. I think that there are three playgrounds or three scenarios that we need to protect and defend, to be pretty positively, but pretty obsessed with. Every company on the planet, every government out there, every society out there has 3Ds simplified and unified scenarios that they need to be, again, obsessed with: identities, data, and applications. Let me repeat: identities, data, and application. Why so simplified? So I think it's simple, not simplistic. It's super powerful, because the moment that you realize that these three playgrounds are hyper-connected, not just connected, but hyper-connected. Why? And let me be visual, here, which is people, identities, consumers, citizens, patients in the hospital, consuming, using, governing, hopefully, data that is actually stored and traveling to from applications. So with all of the many dimensions that technology has, with all of the different angles that privacy and the cloud and mobile devices, and of course that we can get it as complex as we want, but if you want to unify it and simplify it, ask the right questions to the right people at the right time in these three arenas: identities, people, touching data, information, that it's stored, managed, traveling to, from, through applications. So the change has to come on asking the right questions to the right people at the right time on these three arenas. And then, of course, it can multiply into different angles. But let's start on the unified and simplified way. That would be my advice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and it applies to so many areas of, especially, we're talking mostly about business today. But another quote from you And maybe we're getting into the personal here, but evolving to the
Let's go.
next iteration of ourselves. What, tell me what you mean by that.
Well, that I think that the companies we work for, or the associations that where we serve, or my family, if you will, your families. I mean, they deserve the best of ourselves, especially in these troubled, pandemic, difficult, exceptional times. So it's up to us, it's up to me, in this very same conversation, to be the best version of myself, the best version I can afford to be after a long day. I've been as you and as everybody else working long hours, etc. But I need to be the best Ramsés I can afford to be, because I need to be to share information, to be inspirational, hopefully to be educational. So in the very same way, when I'm telling customers or partners or people or friends, colleagues, business executives around the planet, I say they deserve the best version of yourself. They deserve the best talent you can afford. If you are managing a firewall, if you are drafting and designing the encryption methodology for protecting customer data or patient data in the healthcare arena, so important in this COVID-19 times, or financial information, they deserve the best version of yourself. Because what we're talking about here, Elizabeth, is trust. And I love the discipline of trust. Trust is earned, my friend. Trust, ladies and gentlemen, for you, and I'm looking straight into the camera when I'm saying this, trust is earned. You are not trustable because you say so. You are trustable because you look trustable. You sound trustable. And as a company, your security program deserves the trust of customers, right? So when I've been quoted, and again, thank you for that, on becoming the best version of ourselves, first, I always think on my duty, my personal, my belief, my personal duty. But second, and I'm assuming that happens across the board, around the world. I mean, you guys have a working contract. I mean, you don't want your employer to be bad. You don't want your association or your university or your hospital or your government to fail, unless you have a problem. But that's for another conversation, right? But you want your country to shine. Am I right? You want your association, your community to thrive. Am I right? So we need to do that, becoming the best version of ourselves. And again, I say with massive respect, because we are all suffering. We are sitting in our homes for the past 11 months. And so while I appreciate the massive respect that deserves, I mean, they also deserve, meaning my family, my colleagues, my teammates, you as my host today, the attendees that are hearing this, you deserve the best version of myself. And that's my hopefully inspirational message for everybody who's attending today. Yep.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yep.
So let's go to, so both of us have worked in security and privacy. Both of us know that the line blurs quite a bit. People get confused what's what. But it's, we know the importance and challenges that come with protection of information. So let's go ahead and talk about the challenges with enterprise security as it relates to innovation.
Fantastic. Well, there are many challenges, but one being, understanding what I call the life cycle of data. Data is one of the assets of a company. But let me be very clear. And by the way, that my mind goes back to my three playgrounds: identity, data, and applications, correct? But the two most important assets of any company, of any society, the two most important, there are other things, but the two most important assets in this specific order is people and data. People and data. And as a consequence, it's very important to understand the life cycle of people and data within a company, or if you want, within a society. What I'm opening the door here, Elizabeth, is to identity management and access governance, actually having the answer for what I call the 5 universal questions. There are 5 universal questions, and they can be asked, from an auditing perspective, from an assurance perspective, or in a court of law. Wow. At the end of the day, what everybody wants to know, if something happens, is who had access to what, when, and how. Meaning, what happened, who did it, for how long, from where, how was that possible, basically, you know? I mean, at the end of the day, and with all due respect for the auditing profession, at the end of the day, they check that, hey, what happened? Forensic analysis, I mean, it's a job of checking that controls were in place and they were effective and efficient, correct? Okay. So the life cycle of identity management and access governance. But on the second asset, data, information, that you're an expert, and you and I, we've been in the industry, you know, for decades, understanding that, well, and let me start with this sentence, if I may. And people might agree or disagree, but that's my belief. We call it data protection. Okay, be it. But different sets of data in aggregated fashion become information. We call it data protection. But at the end, what we want to protect is information, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but different sets of data dispersed in aggregated mode, they can become the digital Ramsés, my digital persona. They can create a profile of me. So, you know, I understand that we call it data protection, and let's go with it. But we mean information protection, which is about the digital Ramsés, what I buy, what I'm subscribed to, how I behave in my digital persona universe. Okay, so it is super important to you were requesting me what changes need to happen. So understanding who has access to what, super important, identity management, access governance, and super important as well, data protection. Data protection, and I don't want to be technical, you know that I'm not a technical presenter, but I will try to be as pedagogical and educational as possible. But technology is magical, Elizabeth, and of course everybody here in the room in this video will understand encryption, encrypt information, fantastic. But there are other types of data hiding and data scrambling and data masking that are equally important, like tokenization. You know, I mean, there are methodologies, especially in the cloud, especially in what I call the cloud journey, as companies are in their cloud journey. So that data that can be addressed, data can be in motion, and data can be in use. Super important, in use. As I am using my phone, data is being used at that moment. It's not in the data center, is being used at that time, right? So not just encryption, but tokenization or data scrambling. And it's super important, and as a closing comment, and I apologize for a long answer, but understanding identity management and access governance, who has access to what, when, and how. And again, the second important asset of every company or society around there, it's data lifecycle management, how to encrypt, how to protect, how to be positively obsessed with making sure that information does not fall in the wrong hands, or is not in the first page of the newspaper tomorrow morning with my name and my credit card. And another hack, 73 million credit cards, boom, another hack, 179 healthcare records, and that happens, unfortunately, Elizabeth, every day. I don't want to be in that situation, and no one wants. So that change, that shift in perception, doing different things differently, and radical innovation comes from understanding all that. Let me finish with the following. Is it easy? No. And I know this is being recorded, so probably people say, hey, the speaker said it's not easy. Okay, we're safe. No, wait a minute. If you want to quote me on that, because Ramsés said it's not easy, you have to quote me on the following one as well. It is not impossible. It is not impossible. It takes time. I know. It is difficult. Well, yes, but asking the right questions to the right people. Then the holy discipline of prioritization. I mean, there's a verb for that. Prioritize, So do it. That would be my apologies for a long answer, but I get excited on the need of change and that shift in perception. But back to you, Elizabeth, please. Yeah.
No, I like long answers. I mean, it's just so much in there, and I think what we need to do is do the transcript of this, and pick some points and get into it further another time as well. But
absolutely.
Yeah. So you talked about resiliency a little bit earlier, but we need to take take security or
Uh-huh.
go from security to resiliency. And you also said the breach is just a matter of time. Now,
Yeah,
that's not good news for little, small to mid-sized firms when they, when they experience a breach. You're talking millions
I know.
of
I
dollars
know.
lost,
I
and
know.
quite possibly your company.
Yep.
So, what makes you say that it's only a matter of time, and what about resiliency?
Well, some authors indicate, and I know this is not good news, but some authors indicate it is just a matter of time that you will get breached. I mean, there's in the industry, there's the saying that don't ask if will happen, just ask yourself when it will happen, which is a tragedy. I know that this is bad news for everybody listening to this. Hey, wait a minute. So Ramsés, the speaker, is saying that it will happen. Well, unfortunately, yes. However, I have good news. Don't worry. The question is not if they will get in, which probably, and I guess I'm so sorry to say that, probably yes, because that's their business, and cyber criminals, they will try and they will try, and they are super persistent, and okay, maybe they will get in. However, the question is not if they will get in. The question is if they will get out with relevant information. Hence, the holy discipline of encryption and data hiding and data scoring. Again, it's a tragedy if you get breached. Actually, the law actually tells you that your obligation is mandated that you let the authorities know and you let the people know, and wow, big time. However, I think that, and this is considered, by the way, as a how you call it, a mitigation strategy in a court of law. So your honor would consider that if you were breached, that's bad, period. But if they got out with nothing, or with something that is not actionable, actually that is not only encrypted but tokenized, where you have the right, again, mitigation strategies and countermeasures, etc., and bad as it is that you get breach, I think that that's a positive thinking. So I think that it's again, that shift in perception that I was requiring and talking about at the beginning. So a different mindset. The question is not if they will get in, because again, we're talking about cyber criminals. And actually, if there's any lawyer in the room, probably they can call if they want to chat with us, or maybe in the future, etc. But the question is actually, how do you prosecute this? I mean, that felony, coming from another country, because as far as I know, the things I learned in the law school is about you need to prove things, unequivocally, with no doubt. So how are you going to prosecute, let's say, that you are being targeted from another country? I'm not going to mention anyone because everybody can think of the countries that you want. I mean, I'm not talking about, the typical suspects. No. I mean, even a little country, in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, or in the US, or in Latin America, or you guys in the US, meaning, how do you prove that in a court of law? So then you need to assume breach, which is not good, right? But the question is if they will get out with relevant information. For that, Elizabeth, I'm inviting everyone to, again, in that change that you were asking before, to understand not just the idea of structured data, the data that that exists, which is good, fantastic, that you have under control, but then the discipline of unstructured data. The name implies that actually is the data that you don't know that it exists, that is sitting somewhere in an iCloud account, in a WeTransfer folder, in a Dropbox folder. Hey, you know what? I put it on that folder in the internet, Dropbox, Box, Yammer, etc. So structured data and unstructured data are super important. And yes, we have to assume breach. Try not to get breached, of course. But if you allow me one more minute, Elizabeth, is in that journey, and I was telling you before, but let me use 4 verbs to define cyber resiliency. I mentioned that security is about identify, protect, detect, the typical things that we have been doing and that are instrumental for success. Instrumental. But resiliency, and I think that will resonate well in these very pandemic troubled times, the verbs that define cyber resiliency are anticipate. Listen, not just identify. Anticipate. I love it. Second, withstand, resisting, enduring. I love it too. The third one, recover. As with COVID-19. Yes, and I'm looking straight into the camera when I'm saying, wow, recovering, as people going out on their own feet through the hospital, hopefully, you know. And four, evolving or re-evolving, should I say, to the next version of ourselves. Anticipating, withstanding, recovering, super important, recovering, assuming reach. How will you recover? How will you respond to that? Because it will happen no matter what, and then evolving. So in that journey from cybersecurity to cyber resiliency, Elizabeth, I think is super important. And yes, we have to assume reach, but you need to be sure that they don't get out with relevant information. Back to you.
So, okay. I mean, that's so. I have two questions. You decide
Okay.
which one to answer first.
Okay.
There are ways to prevent a breach, and
Mhm.
I mean, I'm going to skip a little bit here around, but the number one threat, at least the way have been taught or whatever, is credentials, the username and
Huh?
password.
Absolutely.
That's how they got
Absolutely.
into SolarWinds.
Yep.
Well, that was one they got hold of someone's credentials. So why
Uh-huh.
not just get rid of credentials and go
Absolutely. And
passwordless?
absolutely, exactly. I was going to say that. Passwordless. Take into account that something that you know, meaning username and password, is something, unfortunately, and it has happened, by the way, not just in movies, it happens every day, unfortunately, is something that someone else can know
Yeah.
because they heard it, because they saw it, you writing it or whatever, because you had unfortunately, a post-it note under the keyboard. Well, you know the drill, right? But I'm not joking. I mean, something that you know is something, Elizabeth, that you can know, something that I know. However, something that I have, my phone, a token, a USB drive, is something that, hey, wait a second. If I have it, you cannot have it because I have it. So it's not something that I know, but something that I have. The industry calls it two-factor authentication or robust authentication. Not only relying on username and password, something you know, but something you know as something you have. Just for the record, just as an example, we have been doing this in the finance industry, banks, for decades. I mean, when you go to an ATM, it's something that you have, I mean, the credit card, and something that you know, your PIN number. You cannot get money out of an ATM with just one of them, knowing the PIN. Or so exactly the same if when you access your Google accounts or iCloud accounts or your Salesforce, your Workday, your Slack. I mean, why has it to be different? But let me add another layer, which is in this passwordless world that you are inviting us into it, which is something you know, credentials, something you have, a phone or a token or something you are.
Yeah.
Biometrics. Even my voice is my password. I mean, not just my face, with Face ID or with the finger. No. I mean, technology is amazing, Elizabeth, these days. My voice is my password. My voice is kind of unique. Or my keyboard writing pattern. The way I write is difficult to be mimicked because I press this keystroke in a certain way. So technology, and especially machine learning, is super capable of helping us on that dimension. So absolutely, you're right. I mean, the moment that still some applications and especially in the government, I have to say, I mean, because no funding and lack of funding, and it's difficult, and you have to touch, I don't know how many hundreds, not thousands of applications in order to enable two-factor authentication. I understand. Going back to my my previous statement, I know it's difficult. I know. Sometimes it's not even cheap, but it's absolutely possible and it's absolutely necessary. So absolutely yes, in a short answer, yes to a passwordless era that it can be done, and the technology is around. I mean, we at Microfocus, we have it as many others. So absolutely yes, absolutely yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that the password is just, I mean, it was invented in 1961.
Correct.
And I once did this infographic, which I wish I had to show everybody. I'll put the link in the show notes, but it's a graphic that everybody knows the history of technology is just ridiculous. I mean,
Yes,
We started with a telephone and a pen and paper,
agreed,
and now we're like
agreed.
practically have chips in our heads,
Correct, correct, absolutely,
doing everything
absolutely.
this way. I mean, the evolution of technology is fantastic, but the password, the username and password is still there on our post-its.
Yeah, and remember that they were created as a secret. I mean, the idea of it's a password, even the name itself, the language here helps, right? It's something that you have to keep secret. Is the way we create secret and we maintain
Right.
secret. It's like with encryption. You encrypt something and you have the key because, but then suddenly we forgot. We
Yeah.
humans, and I have to say it very clearly and very loud. It's us that we are failing. I mean, technology is there in order to,
Yeah.
to do what it has to do, like the algorithm. The algorithm is always right. It's us humans that we can break, the seal, if I would say. So it's super important, the human factor, and on all that technology perspective. We talk a lot about technology, but at the end of the day, it's us. It's me not understanding risk. It's me, the human, thinking that, oh, come on, that's okay. I mean, this is not risky. Oh, come on, really, Ramsés? So back to you, listen.
No, I love this conversation, and yeah, I mean, I kind of want to get into, you talk about companies that can be innovative.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question to you,
Yes.
to be radically innovative, can we be big?
Ooh,
Can we be big tech? Because,
that's a good one.
I always think of small tech being more agile and more human and more, like Silicon Valley used to have the startup mentality, the
Mm-hmm.
drive to innovate. And now
Yep.
the world is jam-packed full of Google, Microsoft,
Yep. The
Apple,
big four,
the
the
big
big
ones.
five.
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, I have a mixed sensation here, meaning, of course, the big names, they have the funding and almost unlimited resources to do that. So, okay, but let's keep that aside for a second, but that's a reality. But I've seen the best on small startup companies. Going back to my radical innovation topic, Elizabeth. I mean,
Yes.
startup companies in the US. I've been traveling the world when the skies were open. I've been in Israel, I don't know how many times, and especially in cybersecurity, that they rock. I mean, for historical reasons and for geopolitical reasons that we are not going to cover in this conversation. But, Israel or the US, you guys in Silicon Valley or even in the East Coast, I mean, you rock. You understand innovation and doing different things differently, as I was saying, right? Okay. So you don't have to be big. Certainly, if your name is Google, if your name is Facebook, if your name is Twitter, great, fantastic. You have thousands of engineers, getting into the next wave of whatever is the future, right? But I like also to talk about the future of now. The future of now is absolutely the next big thing, and you put the name on my sentence. But the next big name is probably happening now, starting up now in India or in Egypt or in
Mm,
Silicon Valley, or maybe here in Spain. Because startup companies are far more agile, not just speedier. I'm not talking about velocity here. I'm talking about agility. They are more
yeah.
agile into, hey, let's do this. Especially, and I don't want to be technical, but especially when you are developing a product. I mean, the iteration of what they call the waterfall model, etc., is that, hey, how we can bring version 3.2, and in the afternoon 3.3, and tomorrow we're already on 3.5. Why? Because we are 15 people here in a room. Well, of course, COVID-19 doesn't help into that, but I mean, the agility and the vibe and the energy is super important into that, right? So you don't have to be big. Certainly it helps, but I've seen probably one of the greatest technologies in plural coming from startup companies. Between you and me, probably yes, they are acquired at a later stage, so they become part of the big company. But
Yeah.
in terms of saving the world, going back to my US flag, flown, going on thinking differently, doing different things differently, and radical innovation. Let me put an example. I'm not going to tell you the name of the company, just as an example. I've seen very cool technology thinking that let's assume that all of the incoming traffic is bad. I'm not gonna put a sandbox and then start checking for different payloads and do. No. I'm assuming that everybody wants to attack me. And when I saw that, I said, okay, that's interesting. I don't know. And then we progressed with the technology, and then I said, that's a different way of thinking. Okay, let me give you another one. And you mentioned before credentials and identity management. Let me give you another example because you wanted me to explain stories from the real world. Okay, so we're obsessed with pre-admission controls. Pre-admission controls means credentials or even two-factor authentication or biometrics. Okay, so let's ensure that Ramsés is who he says he is. Okay, Ramsés, it's you, identification, boom, you're in. Wait a second. What happened with the conversation on post-admission controls? So pre-admission controls, fantastic, great. But post-admission controls, once I'm into the castle, there are certain things that I'm assuming that I shouldn't be doing, right? And I'm not talking about authorization only, authorization because probably someone seeing or hearing this might be thinking, oh, that exists already, Ramsés. That's called authorization, the different controls on the applications. Yes, but I call it on a larger scale, clouds, devices, applications, post-admission controls. That's, again, another shift. And I know I'm playing with the words, but I've seen it happening, on technology. So radical innovation happening at the identity and access management level, at the data security level with tokenization. These sort of things, Elizabeth, are happening out there in the marketplace. And you don't need to be big. Again, then if Apple comes or Twitter or Facebook comes and they put a check on your name and they buy the company, well, fantastic. I mean, you decide, right? But at the heart of it, it was a startup. At the heart of the innovation, it was a 7-people company or 17 or 70, but not 70,000. You know what I mean? So that's my, and I've seen it happening myself in your soil, in US soil, in Israel, and in Malaga, here in my country, in Spain. I mean, Malaga, I mean, it's the very good talent, on technology and data security. So you don't have to be big. It helps, but you don't have to be big. Back to you.
Yeah, no, I like that, and I'm always for the small guy, the underdog maybe, or the guy that has this new energy, almost like naivete, almost to the point of being naive. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to me. It's idealism. I like it because people actually can do the impossible.
Exactly, that's the spirit. I mean, I've seen in board meetings of startups, Elizabeth, say something. I mean, there's nothing, there's no right or wrong. Just invent something. Actually, one of the verbs I love is reimagine. Reimagine, not just imagine, but reimagine. Do it again. And when you say something, someone says, "And what if?" I love the exercise, and probably that's inspirational for our viewers, our audience here today. I mean, the game of what if. What if it looks like a childish game, but it's not? I mean, what if we do this with this product? What if we approach it from this way? What if we host it in this country? What if we choose that cloud? What if, isn't it beautiful? It looks like a crazy conversation, but it's not. Because at the end of the day, you realize that you're going into the reimagining the world, right? What if we do that? What if we do? That's great. What happens with with that creative conversation and information? I would say. So back to you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And along those lines, let's talk about keeping it personal or making it personal, humanizing. You and I have talked offline a little bit about human versus machine.
Ooh, yep.
And I know that's getting onto an entirely another huge topic, but along the lines of radical innovation, what's being done on the machine side, and can we remain human as we use the machines to do the work for us? Okay, that's a big question.
It's a big one. Actually, I was going to start by saying, how many hours do we have, Elizabeth?
No, okay. we only have we have a few minutes. But
I know. I'm going to shorten it, but I will be honored to be invited again because that's a huge topic. Actually,
yeah.
the discipline of machine learning, let me give you some sentences and then back to you, and then you decide how you want to take it or close it, and then we leave it for another time. But I mean, machine learning is a sub-discipline of artificial intelligence. So let me be very straight on saying, people say, we vendors, I mean, we say, no, we use artificial intelligence. No, what we mean is we use machine learning, okay? Which is a sub-discipline of the overarching umbrella called AI, artificial intelligence. Okay. Now, there are 4 types of machine learning, 4 and only 4. Supervised, unsupervised, reinforcement learning, and deep learning. I'm going to focus on the second one because it's the most common. The big names, as per the previous question, are already talking about deep learning, which is neural deep learning, and this is not for this conversation. So let me focus on the 4th one, which is unsupervised machine learning. Unsupervised machine learning, my dear Elizabeth, it learns by observation rather than by example. Supervised machine learning learns by example. You need to train the algorithm, which is great, but you need to bring different sets of data, But unsupervised machine learning, which is the second stage, learns by observing. And as a consequence, everybody, I guess, that would agree that in terms of data protection, in terms of seeing or guessing patterns of behavior, in terms of detecting anomalies, what is right, what is wrong, what is normal, what is a regular access, especially in this context-aware computing that we should be living, well, we are living actually in this COVID-19 epoch. Again, I'm sitting here in Barcelona, you're sitting home, and everybody's sitting probably at their office or at home. So especially in this time, context is everything, isn't it? And then machines are super good on correlating information, right? Machines can correlate information in a very good way, even more than humans, because and let me be very, very human, very personal. I have my days, and I have an argument with my wife, and I have an argument with my daughter. I'm upset with my boss. I want a salary increase. I'm human. I have my days, but algorithms do not. Period. They do not. They are 24/7 in restless mode, doing data science and crunching numbers and information, right? So I think that everybody would agree that in order to protect data, to see patterns of attack, to have threat intelligence, unsupervised machine learning, which by the way is the one we use at Micro Focus, unsupervised machine learning that learns by observation, is super cool to do that. I can go longer and certainly, I mean, talk for hours on this topic, but the question was super pointed and super focused. Machine learning helps us, but we humans, remember, and going to your question, can we still be humans? Well, hell yes. I mean, actually, we write algorithms. It's on our hands. And for that, we need the right legislation and regulation. And if there's anyone from the government hearing me, we need to regulate AI. We need to regulate machine learning, or it will regulate us in the future. And I'm not joking. So what I'm saying is we need to regulate and the ethical approach of using machine learning, right? But it's a fantastic question, and I'm positive. Yes, we can still be humans because it's us. It's in our hands. Still, it's in our hands to write the right algorithms in order to use machine learning and supervised machine learning for the greater good. Back to you, Elizabeth.
That's great. I mean, again, this is, I think the next show that we do should be on this topic.
Great, anytime, my pleasure.
Yeah, because we could go on and on. We only have a couple of minutes, so I want to give us a chance to kind of wrap things up with final thoughts, tips.
Okay.
For the audience, okay. What do you want to leave some people with right now?
Let me leave you with a couple of sentences, if I may, and I will try to squeeze them. The first quote. I mean, you mentioned some of my quotes. You did your homework, so I'm gonna give you more ammunition for the future, right? And everybody listening or viewing this, I'm looking straight into the camera when I'm saying, the contrary of security is not insecurity, but complacency. Thinking that nothing will happen, thinking that I'm going to be okay, thinking I'm not a target for the cyber criminals. Really? Are you sure? So the contrary of security is not insecurity, but complacency. And another one, which is one of my metaphors of chess, which is if business is king, in the game of chess, you need to try to do the checkmate, and then you win the game by killing the king, all right? But there are other things, very important assets in my metaphor of chess, in the chess game. The queen. The queen is instrumental because it moves faster than any other piece, or as fast as any other piece in the game. She can do all of the movements except the one of the horse. So the queen cannot jump as the horse, but all of the other movements she can do. So while you need to protect the king, which is the game of chess, you cannot win, they say, the game of chess without a queen. And in this conversation, Elizabeth, it has been privacy and identity management and data protection or information protection and unsupervised machine learning and identities, data, and applications. Those disciplines together combined, they are the queen. And you cannot win in this game, the game of life, without the proper queen. Back to you, Elizabeth. Thank you very much.
Wow. I like that you ended on the queen, because the queen is, because queen's female.
Absolutely. And I meant it, absolutely. And not because I want to be politically correct, which of course I love it, and I'm a feminist, etc. I love it. And women in technology, women in law, women in engineering, great. I don't want to be politically correct, but I mean it. I don't really care about who, but I care about the how, and I care about the what, and how. And I understand why the U.S. flag was flown on my honor because of that. I'm obsessed on doing the right things rightly, and doing the right things rightly requires the king and the queen. And I meant it. Elizabeth. And it's been an honor to talk about that, and I will be honored to be back anytime. Back to you.
Well, yeah. I wish we had more time, Ramsés. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to continue this conversation. That's for anytime. Sure. If you'll join us.
Absolutely.
So again, thank you. And people can reach you on Twitter is a good way to reach you, at Ramsés.
Absolutely. I'm not in Facebook, so certainly my Twitter handle is at Ramsés Gallego. It's the same for LinkedIn if someone wants to connect. But I'm posting every single day, sometimes on a personal basis because of my marathons and my training, etc. But always with some insights on data protection and cloud management and security governance. And that's me. That's what I breathe. And as an international chief technology officer for Micro Focus, it's my honor. So yes, they can follow me. I would be delighted to do so. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you so much. And to our audience, as a reminder, the show is recorded. Will be available on our YouTube channel at White Bull Summits, on ubngo.com. And on iTunes or any other podcast platform you choose. Please feel free to reach out via the comments section on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at White Bull Summit, and share as you like with your peeps. So thanks again for tuning in, everyone. Stay well, stay safe, have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you on the next Good Tech.